Your lesson essential question is, how do I use character responses to events and challenges to determine the central message of a story? So again, today we're looking for that central message. So we're determining or identifying it. You learned yesterday that central message means the lesson or the moral of the story. We're going to be identifying that central message by looking at the characters' responses. So we learned that characters respond through their thoughts, their words, their feelings, and of course their actions, what they're doing. So characters respond to events and challenges throughout a story and often learn a lesson. We call this lesson a moral or central message. All three of those words mean the same thing. So we've talked about how we had first identify the beginning of the story. We identify the problem the characters are facing. In the middle, we look for how the character or characters are responding. And remember, they respond through their thoughts, words, feelings, and their actions. And then in the end, we look for that solution to the problem. From all of that, we can identify the lesson or the moral or the central message of the story. We're going to be reading The Wolf in Sheep's Clothing today, and we'll talk about the events together. We'll talk about how the characters respond to a problem, but you're going to be identifying the central message on your own based on the characters' actions, thoughts, words, and feelings. Once there was a wolf who wanted nothing more than to eat one of the sheep that lived in the meadow. But the shepherd kept a close watch over the sheep. Every time he saw the wolf, he chased him back into the forest. So first of all, who is our character? Yeah, we have the wolf as our character. Now, the wolf has a problem. What is his problem? He wants to eat one of those sheep that live in the meadow. So at the beginning of the story, our problem is the wolf wants to eat one of the sheep in the meadow. Then one night the wolf found a sheep's fluffy white fleece. The shepherd had forgotten it. "Aha!" cried the wolf. "I think this fleece might solve my problem." So the first thing that happens in response to this problem is that he found a sheep's fluffy fleece. And I actually see that he responds through his words. He says, "I think this fleece might solve my problem." Let's see how he reacts. With a tug and a pull, the wolf dressed himself in the fleece. Now he looked just like a sheep. So how does the wolf react to finding this fleece? He dresses himself in it. You got it. And if you're not sure what a fleece looks like, you can look over here at the picture. Here he is dressed in the fleece. And I'm going to add that to my graphic organizer because I think that's pretty important. He dressed himself in the fleece so he would look like a sheep. The wolf trotted into the meadow wearing the fleece. He walked among the sheep, and this time the shepherd didn't chase him away. That very night, the wolf carried off a large sheep to have for his dinner. So what happens next? Yeah, he went to the meadow and he took a sheep to have for dinner. So he thinks his problem is solved, doesn't he? The next day, the wolf wore the fleece again and strolled freely among the sheep. But this time the shepherd did notice the wolf. He said to himself, "That looks like a fine sheep for my stew tonight." So the shepherd now noticed the wolf and tricked him back by taking him instead of a sheep. So This wolf thought that he was a pretty tricky guy, and he kind of lied to the sheep and the shepherd, and he tricked them. Was it very nice of him to do? It wasn't very nice of him to do. Um, and now it looks like because he lied and because he tricked the shepherd and the sheep, it looks like now he got caught, and I think he might have an even bigger problem now. Let's read the end of the story. Before the wolf could leap away, the shepherd grabbed him, and that night the shepherd enjoyed a delicious stew. So at the end, the shepherd enjoyed a delicious stew. So the shepherd knew that the wolf was tricking him, and he took the wolf instead. So it seems like that wolf learned a really important lesson. You are going to be talking about the lesson the wolf learned in your discussion post today.